I'm Samuel Rubenson, Professor of Eastern Christian Studies at St. Ignatius College. What is Eastern Christian Studies? As it indicates, it's the study of Eastern Christianity. And why Eastern Christianity? As Pope John Paul II said, Christianity breathes with two lungs, the Western and the Eastern tradition. But Western Christianity has dominated in the world in the last 100 years, much through colonialism and missionary work. And Eastern Christianity has suffered in the last centuries from political developments and is much less known outside its own context. But now, in a globalized world, Christians from Eastern Christian traditions travel and live among Western Christians all over the world. And it's necessary for the future of Christianity that we really do understand one another. Now, Eastern Christianity, what does it really contain? That is the Christian traditions in Ethiopia, in Eritrea, in Egypt, that is Eastern Africa, including, of course, the Greek tradition in Alexandria and Egypt, and then, of course, Christianity in Palestine, Israel, Jordan, Syria, Lebanon, Iraq, Iran, as well as Armenia, Georgia, and then, of course, Ukraine, Russia, Finland, and all the countries of Eastern Europe. These are the traditions that were coming out of the East Roman Empire and the countries that were ruled by the Roman emperors. It includes the Oriental traditions, that are the churches that did not use Greek as their mother tongue, the Ethiopic tradition, the Coptic, the Syriac, the Armenian, as well as those that traditionally used Greek and that are part of what we call the Byzantine churches. These Eastern Christian traditions cover large part of Christianity, the largest being the Russian and the Ethiopian tradition up in the north and in the south. Historically, these churches have had their encounters primarily with Islam and also then in modern times with the communists, which has put the churches in the Eastern traditions under pressure and struggles that have influenced their developments. Eastern Christianity is not one single entity. There are large differences between the Eastern Christian traditions. The Ethiopic has its own character that is also part of an African culture, an East African culture. The Coptic has its tradition closely related to early Christianity in Egypt with its Greek background. The Syriac is a very early language, the language that was spoken in the time of the New Testament, in the time of Jesus, in the area of Palestine and Greater Syria at the time. The Armenians have their own history, their own culture, their own language. Eastern Christian traditions use different languages, even different scripts, which has, of course, also made them more difficult to study. You need to learn a lot of what we call Eastern Christian languages: Ethiopic, Coptic, Syriac, Armenian, Georgian, of course Greek, Old Slavonic, and so on. Now, why is it important to study Eastern Christianity? It's not simply that it exists. Of course, its existence among us makes it necessary in order to understand one another. But it's also part of Christian heritage. If we deny part of human heritage, we We deny part of humanity, says the Hague Convention on Cultural Heritage. And it goes the same for Christianity. If we deny any part of the Christian tradition, its history, its life, we deny part of what Christianity is. Because Christianity is not a specific ideology that is refined in a certain church or denomination, but Christianity is the sum of Christians through the ages. Every Christian, every baptized person in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit actually is a contribution to what Christianity is. And so it's necessary to include Eastern Christian studies if you want to understand what Christianity is. But it's not only a matter of understanding one another and understanding what Christianity is. It's also a question of understanding who you are yourself as a Christian. Because having a Christian identity means that you are part of a communion, a global communion through the ages. So you are in communion with, you are part of every Christian who has lived on this earth back to the time of Christ. And in order to be able to understand yourself, your deeper identity, you should also take into account the experiences, the thinking, the poetry, the liturgy of other Christians. This will help you to understand your own Christianity, your own liturgy, your own theological tradition, and give it a deeper meaning. It's not by defining things that we are enriched, but it's rather by looking at things from different perspectives. So it will help you to get a richer understanding of Christianity and of your own tradition, of your own self. With the help of Eastern Christian studies, we are also assisted in getting to know early Christianity better, because it is in the places where a Western Christian tradition, an Ethiopic, a Russian converge, where they meet, that we really get back to something of what has been the essence and the most important aspect throughout the ages of what Christianity is. By reading Syriac theological poetry, or looking at Ethiopic liturgical tradition, or studying Georgian Christian philosophers, or reading the Greek fathers, you get glimpses of a world that is much larger than yourself. It's in a way like the overwhelming experience of a night where all the stars are visible, and they enrich your impression of the universal, of being part of a universe, and it makes you yourself more humble. You know, humility is one of the most important virtues in early Christianity. I've myself done much of my research on the sayings of the Desert Fathers. These were sayings that were collected in the 4th and 5th century, and they have been transmitted in all Christian languages. There are Ethiopic, Arabic, Coptic, Syriac, Aramaic, Sogdian, Georgian, Old Slavonic, Greek, Latin, Old French, Old Italian, Modern Russian, Modern Japanese version of the same sayings. And that shows that there is something that we can share in spite of cultural and linguistic differences. And by reading these in different languages, we enhance our sense of belonging together And that is one of the most important aspects of making peace, to get to know and to love one another. And I'd say Eastern Christian Studies is an invitation to learn how to love what is strange to yourself. Thank you.